你要喊那个。 无招线，对对对。他应该是接中头。过一上，然后3以上。
打给你，这样你会挂。他挂不会最好，因为现在剩6分钟。
还好，大家都一群的是正确的。哦，人家一群的，对，
都很侧门会开的，一群的。
对啊。
在这边看位置不好，因为今天都塞满。在左边。
怎么了？刚才的。好好好。没有，我都要拍了，我还要学那个，哪有时间？没有拿我的时间。好，是。
要不要看一下那个麦的电剩几个？那应该 OK 了。
麦在那个我们车长拿着，没人他会收你的声音，谢谢。 下。
完了，我们通通走这个门进去。好。这个哦。这样需要再这样讲。
美国今年6度对台军售，台美关系是不是依然稳固？这是大选后的首度公布。总统真的要关中天吗？员工生计怎么办？
Very much. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Welcome to the 2020 Taiwan-US-Japan Trilateral Indo-Pacific Security Dialogue with the theme of the year, Challenges and Opportunities in the Indo-Pacific region and Taiwan Strait in year 2020 and beyond, co-hosted by Project 2049 Institute, the Japan Institute for International Affairs, and the Prospect Foundation. Now, this time, please let us welcome the chairman of the Prospect Foundation, Dr. Chen Tangshan, to deliver the opening statement. Please welcome Dr. Chen.
Her Excellency President Tsai, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, in Taipei and online abroad. Welcome to 2020 Taiwan-US-Japan Trilateral Indo-Pacific Security Dialogue. On behalf of the Prospect Foundation, I would like to thank you all for joining us today for this timely and meaningful event. I would also like to express our deepest appreciation to our co-host, Project 2049 Institute and the Japan Institute of International Affairs for your contributions to the event, as well as the tremendous help from Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Taiwan. It is truly our great privilege to have Honorable Kurt Campbell and other highly esteemed speakers virtually or physically join us today. Your participation guarantees the success of today's event. Having endured China's aggressive military coercion, disruptive sharp power practices, and the COVID-19 pandemic, we are gathering here to discuss the challenges and prospects of the Indo-Pacific region into 2021 and beyond. China's gray zone operations, cognitive warfare, and economic coercion have turned Indo-Pacific region into a geopolitical battlefield and a zone of struggle between authoritarianism and democracy. During the past 71 years, while under relentless military threats and harassment from China, Taiwan has developed into a successful story of democracy. Taiwan's government and the people also give one of the best practices in managing public health crisis. Along with Australia, New Zealand, and South Korea, we have told the world that successful containment of coronavirus 19 need not to come at the expense of democratic transparency or significant economic loss. As we are eagerly waiting vaccines for coronavirus 19 next year, the challenge is to preserve the values and lifestyles that represent us still remain the major task for a long period of time, and it will require like-minded democracies to work together at a wide range of fronts, including building up sufficient deterrence against military threats and the gray zone operations by major regional aggressors, and forging a trustworthy and resilient global supply chain. So today I'm looking forward to learning from our dear friends in the following discussion. So once again, thank you all for joining us today. Your inputs represent the treasures that we find in an open society time and time again. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Chen, for this welcome speech as well. Please return your seat. Thank you very much. Just like Chairman Chen mentioned, and not just highlight the meeting today and also give up some prospects of the future. Thank you very much for your opening remarks. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, it is a great privilege and distinct honor to have Her Excellency Madam President Tsai Ing-wen to address the opening ceremony. Now, please join me in welcoming Her Excellency Madam President Tsai Ing-wen.
Chairman Chen, Minister Wu of Foreign Affairs, and AIT Director Brian Christensen, and the head of the Japan-Taiwan Exchange Association, Mr. Izumi. And we have a distinguished guest today who will deliver a speech later on. That is Assistant Secretary Kurt Campbell is with us today. And distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Before I begin, I would like to take the opportunity to thank the Project 2049 Institute, the Japan Institute of International Affairs, and the Prospect Foundation for their hard work in making this important conference possible. I also want to thank former Assistant Secretary of State Kurt Campbell for joining us today. It has been a while since we last saw each other. I am happy to see you looking well and in good health. I very much look forward to listening to your talk later on. As I have said before, 2020 has been a challenging year for everyone, with humanity facing unprecedented hurdles caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. The global economy has experienced a continuous downturn, and the way we think and live have changed forever. Critical events such as the pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong and the US presidential election, meanwhile, will significantly influence how we deal with geopolitics in our region in the future. The recent imprisonment of 3 young Hong Kong democracy activists serves as a stern reminder that we are once again presented with a fundamental decision to make. That is, we either defend democracy or we surrender to the threat of authoritarianism. But 2020 has also been a year of warmth, resilience, strength, and friendship. Despite the pandemic, Taiwan continued to welcome old and new friends and form partnerships with like-minded allies, particularly the United States, Japan, and Czech Republic. This year has been riddled with trials and tribulations, but it has also allowed us to form and strengthen mutually beneficial partnerships. This is also why this year's trilateral security dialogue is crucial. Only through engagement and by working together can we tackle the threats and challenges that beset our region and the world. While the COVID-19 pandemic kept us occupied, other forms of traditional and non-traditional threats also pose grave challenges. The South China Sea has become increasingly militarized, and authoritarian forces consistently attempt to violate the existing rules-based order. Taiwan has been at the receiving end of such military threats on a daily basis. We therefore understand the urgency of dealing with these threats. In addition, non-traditional threats such as natural disasters, international crime, threats to energy safety, maritime and cyber security also need to be effectively addressed. This year, we are commemorating the 5th anniversary of GCTF, the Global Cooperation and Training Framework. GCTF is a unique platform for which Taiwan and the US have set up workshops to train officials and experts to address non-traditional security and emerging global issues. Taiwan has also established a regional humanitarian assistance and disaster relief network under the GCTF umbrella. So when natural disasters occur, Taiwan and its regional partners are prepared to help. Over the past 5 years, a total of 29 GCTF workshops have been held to address issues and challenges in public health, energy safety, women's empowerment, and media literacy. More than 1,500 experts and officials and participants from more than 60 countries have attended the GCTF workshops. This year is also the first time we organized GCTF workshops on important topics such as pandemic prevention, the circular economy, and marine debris disposal. We are actively working to expand GCTF in the near future. I am also very pleased that Japan became a full partner of GCTF last year. Sweden, Australia, and the Netherlands also joined as issue-specific partners. The governments and people of Taiwan and Japan have supported and encouraged each other during natural and man-made disasters. I was happy to learn that Taiwan-Japan Exchange Foundation has named 2021 the Japan-Taiwan Friendship Year. We look forward to an even closer partnership with Japan in our efforts to address traditional and non-traditional threats. This year, Taiwan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs established a task force to serve as GCTF Secretariat. It also founded a GCTF alumni network to facilitate connections and reunions for former participants. I firmly believe that institutionalizing GCTF will help it become a hub for regional cooperation, particularly over non-traditional security issues that threaten countries in the Indo-Pacific. Leveraging expertise and capabilities, Taiwan and its like-minded partners in the region can effectively address the challenges ahead. Taiwan has accomplished quite a lot since the outbreak. We have done this without tarnishing what we treasure most, and that is our democratic system and way of life. I also understand that it is difficult to simply replicate a country's experience, as every country has its uniqueness and faces its own challenges. But I must reiterate here that Taiwan is ready and prepared to help those in need. The COVID-19 pandemic allowed us to witness the fragility of life and to understand the importance of mutual assistance. There is a possibility that we might face yet another outbreak, but regardless of how daunting the future challenges are, the international community can always count on us. Let me conclude by saying that throughout our history, we were consistently confronted by great challenges, but we have always been able to triumph by working together and believing in our shared values of freedom and democracy. I wish you all a successful dialogue and a wonderful holiday season. I hope we can welcome all participants to Taiwan next year, and that, of course, includes you, Kurt. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to Your Excellency, Madam President Tsai, to address the opening ceremony of the meeting. Thank you. And we also have the honor for our Madam President Tsai, not just giving us the opening remarks, but also joining us in the first session of the meeting, which is the keynote speech delivered by the Honorary Kurt Campbell. Thank you very much. Please take your seats. Thank you. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we will conclude the opening ceremony. But to start our meeting with the keynote speech, it is our great pleasure and honor to have the Honorary Kurt Campbell, who is the chairman of the executive officer of the Asia Group. But before we bring it to you, I would like to invite the moderator, Dr. Lai Yizhou, who is the president of the Prospect Foundation, to introduce the speaker and the topic. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming the President of the Prospect Foundation, Dr. Lai Yizhong.
Thank you, President, and all the distinguished guests. Well, we are eagerly awaiting for our keynote speakers, Mr. Kirk Campbell. Mr. Kirk Campbell is well-known among Taiwan's strategic community, also well-known in Asia. And among his distinguished public service careers, he served as a Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense during the Clinton administration, where he was instrumental in transforming the U.S.-Japan alliance for the post-Cold War era. And in the Obama administration, he was also instrumental in as an architect for the pivot toward Asia policy, which later on has been renamed as the Asia Rebalance. But I think his distinguished contribution does not stop there. Even during the Trump administration era, he also co-authored with Eli Ratner in year 2018 in supportive of the Trump administration's National Security Strategy Report, which reassessed the U.S.-China policy for the past 40 years. And then last year, he also co-authored with now the National Security Advisor-to-be, Jake Sullivan, in his critique about the way how to compete vis-a-vis China. So I think Dr. Campbell is the thinkers and authors, and also he has an intimate knowledge regarding the incoming Biden administration. So without further ado, let me have the honor and pleasure to invite Mr. Campbell to give us your remarks. Dr. Campbell, please.
My honor to follow President Tsai Ing-wen. I want to commend her and her entire team on the really magnificent handling of the coronavirus. We're grateful for the role that you have played. We have watched how you've dealt with the challenge with great admiration. We only wish that in many respects we could emulate what you've been able to do. I will also say we're incredibly grateful that you've sent one of your closest advisors, Bi Kin Chao, to be the representative, the Taiwan's ambassador here in Washington, D.C. She's already made a terrific impression on colleagues and friends, and she is serving as a vital interlocutor between the people of Taiwan, the government of Taiwan, and the United States. I have to tell Taiwanese and Japanese friends, and let me welcome you all to this wonderful session. I wish we were in Taipei this evening or in the morning. Those of you who are joining by video or by Zoom, let us all commit to be in Taiwan next year. Let me just say that this is an incredibly challenging time in the United States. And we have to articulate it, and we have to be honest about it. We have at least three issues that we're dealing with right now. One is a mounting catastrophe associated with the coronavirus. I think we have failed in this task miserably, and the hope is that at some point in the new year, with new procedures, with a vaccine, that we will be able to close out the tragedy of the coronavirus better than we've started it. And so I have to say that I'd have to give the U.S. government absolutely failing grades in this respect. Second is associated with the coronavirus has been the challenges on the economic side, and it's been difficult for Democrats and Republicans to come together on a further economic package to deal with the extraordinarily consequential economic damage that the coronavirus has made across every sector of U.S. society and American society. The hope is in the coming weeks we will be able to find common ground to move forward. But it's the third area, frankly, that I'm most concerned by, and something that I need to essentially accentuate to Taiwanese friends. Even though it's very clear that Vice President Biden, now President-elect Biden, will take office in early January, I want you to note that the vast majority of Republicans refuse to acknowledge his victory. And this really gives us an indication of the deep healthiness within the U.S. body politic and the challenges that the Biden administration will face. Now, I believe that President-elect Biden is the right person at this time. He's a man who came of age in which connectivity between Republicans and Democrats were central. Finding common cause was important, and I think he is committed. He is determined to try to reach across the aisle for common solutions, and many of the people that are still serving in the Senate were colleagues of Vice President Biden, then Senator Biden, for many years. But I will say, I believe our politics have changed, mostly on the Republican side. The hope will be, however, that after President Trump passes from the scene domestically, that a certain semblance of how we've gone about governance, we will return to the status quo antebellum. So I just want Taiwanese friends to understand that at the outset of the Biden administration, there will be enormous domestic challenges that need to be attended to. I will also say, though, that there are areas of common cause in American domestic politics, and it is important for us to learn and understand elements of the continuity provided by the Trump administration. In Europe, most European friends are happy to see the Trump period pass, but I think in Asia it's a more complicated reality, and I've tried to explain that to my colleagues and friends in government or who will about to go into government. that principally what President Trump and his team have done has seen in a cold-hearted, very clear-eyed manner the challenges that China provides and provokes with respect to the international system. And some of the challenges that we've seen, President Tsai talked about the challenges in the Taiwan Strait, the issues associated with the South China Sea, border incursions with India, some of the most remarkable challenges against India in the last 50 years, what we're witnessing in Australia, economic boycotts that have affected almost every democracy in Asia, from Taiwan to Japan, South Korea, Australia, and also the rise of Gulf War diplomacy across Europe. These are significant challenges, and I believe that the basis for some degree of economic recommitment in the United States and common purpose between Democrats and Republicans will come from a clear understanding of the challenges ahead. And I just want to underscore and give respects to people who have come before. I know as part of this group, our friend Randy Schreiber is participating. He did a remarkable job as Assistant Secretary of Defense, continued on with many important elements associated with continuity in the United States approach to the Asia-Pacific region. And my hope is that there will be elements, I certainly will underscore how important it will be to practice areas of continuity. I think it was a mistake that that President Trump sought to distance himself from everything that President Obama did. I will tell you, I was in many sessions with Randy Schreiber in which he went out of his way to commend work that was done in the previous administration. I will do the same. There were many things done in the Pentagon and the State Department and the National Security Council that we will do well to emulate, to study, and to understand. So I just want to say I do believe that the challenges in the Asia-Pacific region offer us the best possibility for bipartisanship going forward. And if you're looking for one area in which there is common views, common cause, I think you're going to find it in that area. So let me just take a few minutes to tell you what I think we're going to see from the Biden administration as it gets started. And the first, I think, will be a fundamental recognition that for us to be effective and strong internationally, we're going to have to do better domestically. And that's going to require a degree of domestic dialogue, some healing. I think we also have to recognize that areas of domestic investment will be critical in terms of technology and education, ultimately for us to compete effectively. And competition is going to be the watchword. We're going to need to make sure that we double down on efforts in the United States. This is not a one-time thing. We have to continue with work that was started in previous administrations, but do more substantially as we go forward. I think what we've heard from previous speakers and what we will see going forward is a recognition that the United States has spent the last 20 years, frankly, overinvested strategically in the Middle East and South Asia. These are important endeavors, but we spent way too much of our strategic time and attention. And I think the Obama administration is going to continue the process that has begun in the last 10 or 15 years of repositioning ourselves strategically. But I think we will do it in a multifaceted way. I think you're going to see not only a military set of engagements, and I'm most comfortable around that set of issues. We are a country that understands how to adapt to and adjust to new strategic environments. Our Pentagon will be able to take the necessary steps, but it will take time. It will take 10 or 15 years under the right leadership. I think we'll make the right strategic investments, not just continuing old legacy systems, but investing in new capabilities, standoff capabilities, long-range strike, stealth, more capabilities associated with the cyber arena. You can imagine the entire range of capabilities I'm speaking about. I'm confident that we'll be able to take those steps, but as importantly, it will be building the capacity of people who understand deeply the Asia-Pacific region. When Randy and I started and worked together now almost 25 years ago in the Pentagon, it was a relatively small group of people at our level that really understood and focused on the Asia-Pacific region. That group is growing larger every day. I'm proud of that. I think we've built a cohort of people in the Republican Party and the Democratic Party that are deeply familiar strategically with Asia. That will only grow over time. Randy encouraged that process not only in the Republican Party, but in the Democratic Party. I will tell you 25 years ago, there were not that many people that were familiar with or understood the importance of Taiwan. That period is over, ladies and gentlemen. There is a broad group of people across the political aisle that understand the profound strategic significance and our strategic interests in maintaining a strong relationship with Taiwan. So I think you're going to see this reorientation, this process of capacity building across our government, our businesses and the like, and that will take 15 or 20 years. But that process has begun, and it began in earnest really fundamentally in the Trump administration. The area that I think you will see more of on the Democratic side, on the Biden side, is I believe we will take more effort to build common cause with other countries. I think that efforts were made with respect to the Quad and others, but I think the Biden team has been clear that as we go about trying to erect and establish a set of strategic relationships with democracies and other states in Asia, that it will be critical to find those arenas of cooperation that gives us the best ability to engage, to present clear positions to Chinese interlocutors more directly. That process also will not be easy, will take time, and the fundamental endeavor that I believe that we're embarking on is essentially merging two sets of strategic engagements, one with Europe and another with Asia. And so I think melding those, finding common cause between Europe and Asia, particularly around China and other strategic dimensions associated with the challenges of the Asia-Pacific, is the challenge of our time. It sounds elegant and easy to do. It will be enormously challenging, but it's extraordinarily consequential. We have some key people who truly deeply understand Europe. I think Europe, for the first time, is ready for these strategic discussions about Asia and about China, and I look forward to helping to support that as we go forward. So I do believe a fundamental doubling down on working with allies and friends, but not just allies and friends. I can imagine other countries like Vietnam who may have a different governing structure, but still have keen associations and strategic like-mindedness with the United States and other states. There's room for them in these discussions and these dialogues going forward. I also believe that fundamentally building on the work that the Trump team did on the Quad is critical. I note that we have Indian friends here. Raja Mohan has been an absolute vicar with respect to articulating and supporting India's role in the Asia-Pacific region. I'd like that to continue, and I believe making sure that the Quad becomes more robust, perhaps a secretariat, other elements to keep it going will be critical as we go forward. I also think that the United States, to be effective, is going to have to both rejoin international organizations, understand their importance, and also play a leading role in defining the architecture of the Asia-Pacific region. Oftentimes people dismiss architecture. People dismissed architecture in Europe for decades. until it was important. I think it'd be critical for the United States to participate more forcefully and more directly as we go forward. And then fundamentally, establishing and carrying through with a set of strategic engagements with China. It's the biggest challenge of our time, and it will be enormous for our government and future governments. We often say that it's going to be a combination of competition where we must and compete where we can, but that makes it sound in some ways like a cake mix, that there will be sort of, parts of each. I think it has to be said that the United States has never had a relationship like this. We've had relationships with countries that we had fundamental misalignment with, the former Soviet Union, but we've never had, and relations with countries that we're friendly with, like Great Britain, but we've never had the level of interconnectedness with a country that we also have a high degree of strategic distrust and concern. And that's the reality that we face. There are going to be areas where we have to compete. As I said at the outset, I know that we focus more on the military side, but ironically, the direct issues are likely to be in technology and other elements of cutting edge things like AI, 5G, quantum mechanics, quantum computing, robotics, human sciences. We're going to have to find parameters where we work more closely with friends and make clear that there are certain areas of investment in the United States, cutting edge areas of interest that are frankly off limits for Chinese interlocutors going forward. And I think recognizing fundamentally the competitive dimension of the relationship will be critical and clear. Also, I do believe that there are some existential issues that require a degree of cooperation or alignment. I think cooperation is probably too strong between the United States and China. That's going to be on areas like climate change. I think the tail end of the pandemic, there are opportunities to work together. I also believe that issues like North Korean proliferation offer opportunities for engagement more directly. But I think those have to be done carefully, and we have to do it with China in a way that they do not exact other kinds of compromises in other areas. Most of these issues are in their best strategic interests as well. If they work on climate change with the United States, they do not do that as a favor to the United States. They do it because they see it also as an existential threat, as we do. Let me just say a few words about this trilateral dialogue. It's actually thrilling for me to see this take off, to play such an important role in the strategic thinking of both countries. I can remember a time where Taiwan's and Japan's met quietly with very little fanfare. The fact that this kind of meeting is ongoing with a broad agenda associated with information sharing, strategic assessments and alignments, and also just building human connections is deeply exciting for us. I just want to say that it's a powerful thing when your strategic interests and your idealist sentiments are united. And I believe that is happening for the United States with respect to Taiwan. I think it will be incumbent on the Biden administration to look for those ways and areas in which we can continue on cooperation between the United States and Taiwan. Ultimately, I'd love to see an environment in which tensions are reduced between Taiwan and Beijing. I'd like to see some degree of dialogue resume, but ultimately that is beyond what the United States can wish for or hope for, and clearly that ball is fundamentally in Beijing's court. Ultimately, our goal, however, is to assure Taiwan friends of the steadfastness of our commitment to Taiwan's democracy, to ultimately be clear about our defense commitments, not only with respect to the Taiwan Straits, but in Asia more generally. I think here that the Trump administration did an excellent job, and I'd like to see us continue that. But I think the fundamental goal for us going forward is, I've spent a little bit of time in Asia over the course of the last 25 or 30 years. What I hear now more than any other period of my experience working in Asia is a fear in some quarters, and I hope in others, that the United States is in the midst of a hurtling decline, and that we will no longer be prepared to play the traditional role of the sort of supporting the operating system of Asia. Now, it's true that the fundamental challenges to that operating system in the last 4 or 5 years came from both China and from elements of Trumpist thinking, but ultimately the fear is that the United States doesn't want to play that role any longer, the role that has been so instrumental to not only the maintenance of peace and stability, but just remarkable prosperity over the last 40 years. And what will be incumbent on us, and frankly, what I believe is a bipartisan requirement, is to make clear that over 40 or 50 years, there have been many episodes of concern about American decline. In Vietnam, even during the Korean War, at the end of the Cold War, it was Senator Paul Tsongas from Massachusetts says the Cold War is over, Japan has won. At the end of the global economic crisis in 2000, the Asian financial crisis in the 1990s, at each period there were worries and concerns about America not being able to play the role that we played in the past. I think those concerns during the pandemic, I have had Asian friends feel a lot of things about the United States over the last 40 years. Anger, admiration, frustration, wonderment, you name it. This is the first time in my experience that I think a dominant sense in Asia is pity, a real sense that we've mangled this. And so it will be critical for us over the next little while to make clear to the doubters that this is not the end of American power, that ultimately those who bet against the United States have lost a lot of money over the years, and that we have a unique ability to reinvent ourselves, to relaunch, to double down, and in fact, it is in those seeds of concern that has driven us forward. I also believe that there is so much that the United States and Taiwan can do together. I'm proud of the fact that for 30 years, I feel like I've been a strong friend of Taiwan, as Randy and others in the audience have as well. I also just want to underscore that we're not alone any longer, that this is a broad group of people that understand the strategic significance of the relationship, and I just want to give you my commitment to do what I can in the period ahead. I think the Biden administration is hopeful. It's a hopeful sign, mostly for domestic politics, and mostly because of the challenge that I believe President Trump presented, not to the Asia Pacific so much, but to our own body politic. And I believe that the strategic people that he is bringing around him will do what's necessary to sustain American position and power in the Asia Pacific region going forward. I really appreciate the opportunity to be with you all. It's a great team that you've assembled. I promise next year, if we get through this, I'll come and we'll drink a little bit with Japanese friends. We'll celebrate the fact that 3 democracies optimistic about the future. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell, for your very insightful remarks. And yes, you're correct that we all face the same challenge associated with the COVID-19. And in Asia, including Taiwan, we definitely would like to see some kind of continuity and the continued presence of the United States staying in power. And of course, definitely we would like to see you next year in Taiwan in person, and hope like we can see you soon. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the wonderful speech. Many thanks to Honorable Kirk Campbell, and also thank Dr. Lai for your kind introduction. Please return your seats. And ladies and gentlemen, now due to the tight schedule of the Madam President, Her Excellency蔡英文now have to leave us right now for the next agenda. So please join me once again to extend our gratitude with another round of applause to thank Her Excellency Madam Tsai for making appearance this morning. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, have a seat, please. Now, we're going to the next session on the stage would be the panel discussion 1, titled as the impact of U.S. presidential election results on the situation of the Indo-Pacific and the Taiwan Strait. Now, at this time, we have 4 panelists in this session, respectively from Japan, USA, Australia, and Singapore. And once again, please welcome the moderator of the panel discussion 1, the president of the Prospect Foundation, Dr. Lai Yizhong, please.
All right, thank you. No need to applause more because you're going to see a lot of me today, this morning. I'm going to continue. I'm the only one last man standing here. So I'm the winner. But anyway, after hearing the great speech by Honorary Kirk Campbell, and I think many of us probably will feel that we are so reassured about the possible policy outcome of incoming ballot demonstration. And next, we are going to have 4 distinguished panelists here for the session 1. The topic of the session 1 is the impact of U.S. presidential election results on the situation of Indo-Pacific and the Taiwan Strait. So the 4 distinguished panelists. The first one is the Mr. Randall Schreiber, former Assistant Secretary of Defense, and now he's the chairman of the Project 2049 Institute. And second is the Dr. Kotani Tatsuo. He's a senior fellow at the Japan Institute on International Affairs, also our co-host for this event. And the third one from India, but he's right now residing in Singapore, is Dr. Raya Mohan. He's a director, Institute of South Asian Studies, National University of Singapore. And the last one, but not the least, is the former Deputy Secretary of Defense for Australia. But he now is emeritus professor, Dr. Paul Deb. He is the professor at the Australian National University. So we are going to hear their remarks in these orders. Without further ado, let me invite Dr. Randall Schreiber. Randy?
Great. Well, thank you, John, and I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into bringing this event together. You truly have done yourself here. And I also want to thank everybody at Prospect, but also at Gaia for being co-host of this forum. I want to say that I agree with just about everything Kirk Campbell said, but the problem is I like Kirk. And I admire Kirk and respect Kirk, so I don't want to hurt his reputation here as a outgoing Trump appointee. But let me just say I feel reassured myself with Kirk's words and the vision he just laid out. I always said that I thought that the Trump administration approach and the so-called freedom of Indo-Pacific strategy was really more evolution.